pie, sausage roll. Come on, England, gives a goal. Meat pie, sausage roll. Come on, England, gives a goal. Ooh, we got a corner. Ooh, we got a corner.
Okay, well, hello again, and it's already day 5. The week's flying by, which is good news. So today, our 5th challenge is from my son Andy, up in Brighton, or down in Brighton, depending on where you're watching this from. Now, Andy originally, his original ingredient list was steak, kidney, pastry, potatoes, and beans. So I could pretty much see he was telegraphing the direction he wanted the cooking to go, but we had to juggle around a bit because we couldn't get everything. Steak, we got some steak for the meat. That's no problem. Kidney, no, we couldn't get. You can't get kidneys here. At least I've not been able to find them. We did manage to find liver once, but never again. So even if we did find kidneys, I'm not sure we'd want to use them. But anyway, so we're substituting the kidneys with some nice streaky bacon, which should taste even better. Butter, no problem at all. That's fine. Potatoes, no problem at all. Beans, as I said in the first video, I think he was thinking more on the lines of Heinz beans in ketchup or in tomato sauce. We've got white beans, but they are cooked. I was hoping to get the dry beans, but again, out of stock at the moment. So we're going to do something with the white beans and ale. And I'm still failing miserably to track down any decent ale. So we're stuck at the moment with our tin of Heineken. But I haven't given up all hope of finding a bottle or two of real ale between now and cooking time later this evening. So what are we going to do? Well, despite the telegraphing of the ideas, we are going to pretty much head in the direction I think Andy was hoping for. So we're going to basically make a steak and bacon and ale pie, and although pastry isn't an ingredient, butter is. So we've got butter, and we'll get some flour from the store cupboard and make a pastry to encase the steak and bacon. We'll do some mashed potatoes, but we'll dress it up a little bit so they're a little bit more than simple mashed potatoes, but essentially mashed potatoes. And with the beans, we're going to do a traditional Macedonian dish, talce grauce, which is basically beans cooked in paprika and some other herbs and spices, and then baked in the oven. So that's our 1-course meal for today. So to our pastry, and this is definitely the shortest ingredient list of the week, I think. Basically just butter, flour, and some salt, which Jeffy's looking after here. So we take 225 grams of the flour, put that into a bowl, add a little bit of salt and mix that around so that the salt is evenly distributed. Then we take our butter, half of a pack, and it should be very cold, straight from the fridge, as cold as it can be. Cut your butter into roughly 1 centimetre squares, and then drop it into the bowl. Spread them around into the bowl, and then using your fingertips like that, just keep picking up the lumps of butter and rub them, and slowly but surely the butter will break up into smaller and smaller pieces, and you'll end up with something which looks pretty much like breadcrumbs. It shouldn't take you more than about 5 minutes. Just carry on doing that, picking up the butter pieces, dropping it back in. Make sure you get everything down the bottom of the bowl and everything's nicely mixed. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look perfect. The main thing is there aren't any big lumps of butter left in there. But as long as you've broken down the butter, then your pastry is good to go. So the next thing, you take a tablespoon of cold water, as cold as you can, add that to your breadcrumb mix, and then try and form it into a ball of pastry. It may work straight away, or you may need to add another tablespoon of water. That very much depends on your flour. Every flour is a little bit different and needs a little bit more water, but 1 to 2 tablespoons, but add less rather than more as you go, because once you've added it, you can't take it out, and you don't want it to be sticky. You want your pastry to be just enough that it will come together into a ball and stay together as a ball. So it shouldn't be crumbly, but equally it shouldn't be sticky. So hopefully you've got your ball of dough, of pastry dough. What you now then need to do is separate it off so you've got 2/3 in one piece and 1/3 in the other. Okay, the smaller of the two you can pop straight into the fridge to keep cool, because you won't need that till later on after you've made your pie. The larger one you roll out with a rolling pin until it's about 4 millimeters thick, something like that, 3 to 4 millimeters thick, like that, and then you lift that and put it into your pie dish and press it down to make sure it's properly in the bottom and up the sides of the dish. You can trim any excess pastry from around the side, but leave enough of a lip hanging over the edge of the dish for now, because you're going to need that to act as a seal with the top of the pie dish later on. So just do that, and then pop that also into the fridge for now to keep cold while we make our meat ingredients to go inside. Right, so now for our pie filling, which is essentially steak and bacon, but we're going to start with an onion. Chop the onion up into very small pieces, and a stick of celery, chop that also into small pieces, and bacon, chop that up into postage stamp size 2 centimeter pieces, so they're big enough to taste, so you know when you've got a piece of bacon it's big enough to chew on. So you take the onion, celery and bacon, fry them all off in some oil in a pan for about 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, and then when they're done, take them out and put them to one side, and then in the same pan you add the steak. Now I'm using pretty high quality sirloin steak, because here it's a bit all or nothing. You either buy steak or you buy beef, but with the beef you never quite know what you're getting or what cut you're getting, so we're playing it safe and doing the steak. So we're going to chop that up into 2 centimeter pieces, and then in the same pan just fry them off for about 5 minutes or so until they're sealed on all sides, so that it will keep in the moisture when it cooks in the oven. Then we can return our bacon and celery and onion back to the pan again, and then we're going to add some beef stock made with a beef stock cube, and some of our ale if we get it, which Chef is looking after at the moment, but hopefully that'll be replaced before this evening. add your stock and your ale to your pan, and then you add a little bit of ketchup, some thyme, some chili powder and a bit of Worcester sauce, and then you cook it. And how long you need to cook it does depend entirely really on what cut of beef you're using. With a sirloin steak, half an hour will be adequate. It will be tender within about half an hour. If you're using braising steak, hour and a half to 2 hours. If you're using stewing steak, even 3 hours. But having said that, the flavour is wonderful if you're prepared to wait that long. But ours we'll probably do for about 45 minutes to be on the safe side. And then right at the end, it rather depends how much the liquids reduce, but bearing in mind we want this to be a filling to go into a pie, so we want it to be a pretty thick gravy sauce that's with the meat. So if it's still a bit thin, then the answer then is to get a bit of corn flour, teaspoon of corn flour, mix that with a little bit of water, and then add that to your pan, and then stir that around for 4 or 5 minutes, and the corn flour will thicken the sauce and make it nice and rich and ideal to put in your pie dish. So essentially we then, having done that, let it cool a little bit, and then put the filling into your lined pastry pie dish. You've already put the pastry on the bottom, put the meat in, and then you get your other piece of pastry, the smaller piece, and again roll that out till it's 3 or 4 millimeters thick. And then the next thing you do, you get an egg, beat an egg, and hopefully if you've got a pastry brush, if not, you can use your finger, providing it's clean. But you get the egg and just go around the edge of the pastry, the base pastry, which is already in the dish, and just brush some egg around it. Then you put your top onto it and press it down around the edges, and that's where a fork is useful to go around the edges. And the egg mixture then will help for the two pastries to seal, to join together and seal, so that the mixture inside won't escape during the cooking. And then the last thing you do is just with a sharp knife, just do a little cross in the middle of the top of the lid of the pie, which will allow steam to escape during the cooking. If you don't do that, then the steam can build up and it can blow the top of your pie out. But if you just put a little cut in it, the steam will escape. And then you get to the rest of your egg mixture and just brush that over the lid of the pie, and pop it in the oven. The egg will make it go nice and brown on top. Should take about 30 minutes. Just keep an eye on it that it doesn't burn, but that it goes a beautiful golden brown colour on top. And there you have your steak, bacon and ale pie. Right, now then to tauce grauce. Tauce grauce is a very traditional Macedonian recipe for white beans baked in the oven with paprika is the basic of it, but it's slightly more than that. I hope to get dry beans, in which case we would have started this recipe about 3 hours ago, because the beans need to be soaked and then cooked and cooked and cooked and cooked. And normally you would probably try and cook them with some onion and some garlic and some coriander seeds during that process, but we don't have to do that because we've got already pre-cooked beans. So the way we'll do it instead is we'll chop up the onion into small pieces, not too small though, and fry them in a pan for 5 minutes or so. Then we'll add some chopped garlic and fry it for a little bit more, and we'd also put in the bay leaf at this point. Okay, and cook that, fry that with the onion and garlic and bay leaf all together. Then after that's been cooking for about 10 minutes, we add our white beans to the mix, and then we can also add some chili powder, some coriander, ground coriander, a squirt of tomato puree, and some chopped mint. So that's our pan with everything, basically everything in there except this. And this is the paprika. What we do with the paprika, in a separate pan, frying pan or small saucepan, put in some sunflower oil or vegetable oil, and then add a lot of paprika and stir it around. And you're actually cooking it for probably a minute or so. You want it to turn from that sort of bright red to a sort of more golden, darker red. But you don't cook it for too long, because if it goes too long it'll turn brown and then black, and if that happens, throw it away and start again. But about a minute cooking should be enough for your paprika and oil. And then once you've done that, you essentially just add that mixture, that paprika mixture, to your bean mixture, give it a good stir, and then put it into an oven dish and pop it in the oven for about 30 minutes. So the same as your pie, so they can go in together. And what you want ideally is that a bit of a crust starts to form on the top of the beans. So not a thick crust, but a sort of just crusting up a little bit. And that's it. So there we are. You have your pie and you have your tauce grauce, both ready, hopefully at the same time. Okay, so finally for today we have our potatoes, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence by taking you step by step through how to make mashed potato. I'm guessing most of you know that already. But very simply, into the pan of boiling water with a bit of salt, cook them off for 20-25 minutes. And really all I'm going to do with it is I'm going to fry off a couple of spring onions, chop a couple of spring onions up and fry them off in butter rather than oil. And then when the potatoes are done, I'm going to put the spring onions with the butter that they've been cooked in, and if necessary a little bit more butter, into the pan with the potatoes. Add a little bit of milk Check for salt if you need to add a bit more, and certainly a few grinds of black pepper. And then get your masher and give it a serious mashing. If you're really dedicated, you'll mash and mash and mash and mash. You might even get your whisk out and really make it a really smooth mashed potato, because there's nothing worse than bits of lumps of potato in your mashed potato. So it's worth that extra time just to give it a good old mash. And there we have it. Meat pie, mashed potato, and tauce grauce.
It's lonesome away from the kindred and all, by the campfire at night, where the wild dingoes call. But there's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear, than to stand in the bar of a pub with no beer.